Hey guys, quick video on trend lines. I'll use figure 2 as the example. Overall, I said anytime we're looking at two waves in a row in the same direction, we can draw a trend line. I should point out that this can be applied to any time frame and sort of any type of trading strategy, whether it's swing trading, day trading. So this could just as easily be a 5-minute chart, a 1-minute chart, a weekly chart, a monthly chart for investing. It doesn't matter. The principles pretty much apply across all time frames, and I'll point out a few differences that you might, if you're a very short-term trader, as I am most of the time, what you'll be looking for. So here I've drawn sort of based on major waves. You could draw trend lines based on shorter waves, so this connecting to this low, so that when this major down move happens, you'd be alerted that, hey, maybe something's wrong here. At least this short-term trend is looking at a bit deeper retracement, and in fact it does pull back past that low. But looking at the overall context of the move, we're still in an uptrend because this made a higher low than this and then started moving back higher. So we can draw this trend line. Once this starts moving back, we have some confirmation that this low is in place and we're moving higher again based on the trend. Of course, it is possible it could pop and go back here, but that's why we have the trend line there to alert us of those things. And we're also watching price action, so if that did pop up and move back below that low, that's a warning signal that this trend is in trouble, especially if it made a lower high as well. So we're looking at overall context, price action, and trend lines to try to sort through kind of all the clutter that we see on our charts. So as mentioned, this pops higher, we have this rundown, consolidates. This would have actually broken through that former trend line, but the trend's not over. It's still a higher low overall than this one. So we simply redraw the trend line. Trend lines may need to be drawn 2 or 3 times, sometimes 4, depending on the trend, multiple times. So all they do is help us assess the direction, notice some different strengths within the trend. So sometimes we'll have this a little bit stronger, and then longer term we'll have this a little bit weaker overall trend. It's not going up at the same angle it was. And then we have this move at the end, which is an acceleration of the trend. And by that I simply mean this low did not retrace to the trend line. So we could have drawn another trend line connecting this low to this low and extending out to the right. Right around here, this would have broken the trend line, similar to that situation here. It doesn't indicate the trend is over because we still have this overall movement, but based on your time frame, that may be a warning sign to get out. So trends up, we get to this side of the chart, and we'll discuss trading signals in a bit, but it's relevant here. This is a higher low and then moves higher, so we could draw another trend line there connecting those lows. And if that trend is indeed up, we expect this to continue to the upside to make a new high. Instead, it creates a lower high and then moves back down. So this I would have looked at trading, still an uptrend, still a higher low, solid trade. Probably would have ended up being flat or a loser once we get to this point here. It's failed to move higher, which is very different than all these other ones, which just basically shot up after the pullback. So telltale sign there, can't move higher, start to move back toward the entry price, definitely looking to get out. Does the same thing here. We still have a slightly higher low, but we've almost pulled back to this former low. Pops higher, but I wouldn't be looking to trade this one. Based on this movement, we can see this is a different type of movement than any other type of pullback we've seen. Definitive higher lows, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. Different than anything else we've seen. We've basically seen pullback, shoot higher, pullback, shoot higher, pullback, shoot higher, consolidation, shoot higher. So we want to look at the overall structure of price moves as well. This is almost a different topic entirely, but for a couple minutes I think it's worth throwing in. So we have a definitive break of this overall trend once we move past this low, so we could also put a horizontal line on each one of these lows to help us kind of see if the overall trend is still moving up. As I've said, trend lines will be broken, and it doesn't mean the trend is over. So you can draw little lines at the bottom of these to help see if we're making overall higher lows. Once this price breaks through this, based on all the evidence, we definitely want to consider that the uptrend is over. And another point I should make is trend lines can also be drawn on these small consolidations. They can be used to kind of analyze the micro picture, and also for swing trades. Chart patterns have been covered pretty extensively on the site if you search for them. So trend lines could be drawn along these highs and lows, break out lower, which resulted in a move down to the low point, which resulted in our next trend line. And this one could draw trend lines here, and then it popped higher. So we can trade the breakouts of the trend lines, or I've also put on the site some ways to indicate potential breakout direction. This one, after a very strong move higher, the indication, it's almost like a flag pattern or pennant pattern. Once we see this move, the expectation is that we're going to see another pop higher of about similar magnitude. We don't always assume that. It's very special circumstances that we want to anticipate that breakout. But in this case, it would have worked out well. But that, again, another topic almost entirely. Anyway, I hope that gives you a little bit more information on how to use trend lines. Don't be afraid to redraw them. You're looking at the overall price structure. Higher lows in an uptrend and lower highs in a downtrend. Once you have two, you can draw. These can just help you sort through all the BS that sometimes occurs on a chart, and that we sometimes tell ourselves when we're in a trade. One other point, you can make trend lines into trend channels. You could draw another trend line connecting these highs, which kind of gives you a rough estimate of where future price waves are going to go. That is also a useful tool. They're called trend channels, and they've also been written about on the site. So you can, if you want more information on those, there's some trading strategies that you can use for those. One other thing I should point out is trend lines provide areas where we're looking for potential pullbacks. In the case of these, they're not definitive. So, like I said, if it breaks through, slightly, or you want to draw them where it kind of moves through some of the bars, that's fine. They're simply guidelines. They're not exact levels. It kind of annoys me when people on the news or whatever who don't really know what they're talking about most of the time in terms of technical analysis say a trend line was broken and the trend is over. Just because a trend line is broken does not mean the trend is over. We want to look at overall price action, and we can draw trend lines not at exact highs or lows, but at sort of like average moves. Here, if we drew one through the highs, which would create a trend channel, and I'm just using a figure here, I'm not actually in my trading platform, so I can't do it, but from here, drawing a line through, as we can see, it would go through some of these bars, and that's fine. It's just providing a guide. It is not an exact level, and I think that's what some people get a little too caught up on with trend lines, is that they start thinking of them as exact, precise levels that if broken, all bets are off, and that's not true. They're simply guides which help us visualize our overall price movements. So if you have any questions, throw them down in the comments. I'll try to get to them, and happy trading.